Hello guys, and thank you for tuning in, and this is the first book review on my new channel, and today I am reviewing Shivers number 4, The Animal Rebellion. I mentioned in the previous episode, the kind of opening to the Shivers series, that I was going to pick books at random out of the hat, and I am going to do that. However, this book I actually chose to read first, and the reason that I actually chose to start with this one is because I actually remember reading it as a child, and actually it's one of the only ones that I have a lot of knowledge about. Well, not a lot of knowledge, that's probably the wrong phrase to use, but it's the one that stuck out as one that I remember enjoying. So I thought, going back to them as an adult, I might not enjoy them as much, I hope I do, but I wanted to start with one that I thought I definitely would enjoy. So, because this one stuck out in my memory, it was being a good one, I decided to start with this one. So anyway, The Animal Rebellion is number 4 in the Shivers series. It is 115 pages long and has 24 chapters. So I'm going to kind of talk through what happens in the book. So at the very beginning of the book, we are introduced to our main character, who is called Winston, who is from Chicago. And he's described in two ways. He's described mostly as a computer nerd, a bit of a geek. And they describe that he wears glasses, which back in the 90s, when this was wrote, on any film or TV show that you saw, if you were a geek, or if the character was a geek, sorry, they would be wearing glasses. There's no doubt about it. That was the sign that you were a nerd. Luckily, that's different nowadays because I wear reading glasses now. Although saying that I am a geek, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Moving on. So he's described as a typical computer geek, but he's also described as like a city kid, a typical city kid. He likes his convenient things being around him, his amenities, he likes the technology being around, he likes the buildings. And for 2 weeks this summer, I think it's 2 weeks, he's going to stay with his uncle and his cousin. So that there's his uncle Bob and his cousin Brad, who's like his best friend. And they live out in the country farm in Vermont, where they work and they have all the jobs on the farm. But, so he's not really looking forward to it, because he's obviously used to being in the city, whereas he's going to be away in the farm. There's no technology, everything's going to be new, there's going to be animals around, it's probably going to smell. So in general, he's just not looking forward to going, even though it's his best friend is going to be there. And his best friend Brad, who's the 12-year-old as well, I assume they're both 12, has a really weird description. I can't remember exactly how it's described in the book, but because I wrote some notes so they know what I'm talking about. I know he was definitely described as like a blonde, good-looking, muscly 12-year-old. Now, I don't know, maybe I just have a dirty mind, but describing a 12-year-old as blonde and muscly and good-looking, it just sounded a little, it just didn't sit right. It just felt a bit weird. It felt really strange for one of these books to kind of go there. But, you know, he works on a farm, so to be fair, he probably would be in good shape. So his cousin and his uncle pick Winston up from the airport. And when they pick him up in the van, he hears this weird thumping sound from the back of the van. And they tell him, oh, it's an evil spirit of an animal that died and it's haunting the back of the truck. And when we get to the farm, the actual farmhouse itself is haunted as well. And the farm's full of the ghosts of all the dead animals that have been killed over the years. So, I need to stop saying so, I do apologise. This is the first time I'm doing this, so please bear with me. Winston gets quite freaked out because he doesn't really know what's going on, whether to believe them or not, but they're just like, it's a joke, calm yourself, this is just a joke. And then they arrive at the countryside later in the day, and he's actually surprised when he gets there because they've got a new computer. I don't really know why they randomly have this new computer when he arrives, because why would surprising the person who's only going to be there for 2 weeks be a big deal? But anyway, they've got this new computer, which at the time is a Pentium computer with a 28.8 modem and 16 RAM. To anyone who knows anything about computers, that's not good. Not in this day and age. In that time, it might have been the best that was around. I can't remember. But so they got this new computer, which they've said they're going to set up in the room across the hall from where he's staying. And they get really weird about this room that he's staying in. Like his cousin Brad, yeah. He gets really strange about this room and a bit off and doesn't really want to say why. But Winston's just like, tell me what's going on, what's so strange about this room? So he goes into the story about how the last person in the room was murdered by this crazy, smelly, hairy guy that came out of the woods and hacked him to death with an axe. So they call it the Death Room now. And Winston's very much like, are you taking the piss? And yes, they're joking. I'm joking again. All I ever do is joke and take the piss out of you, clearly. And trust me, guys, it's going to get a whole lot worse. So he's like, not very happy that he's kind of playing all these jokes on him. So they have a bit of a jokey fight. And they're in the bedroom, and Winston's jumping at Brad while having this fight. And Brad hits his head against the wall and collapses to the floor, unconscious. Winston's calling out for the uncle, like, where are you? Brad's unconscious, and he can't hear him. So he tries to call for help, tries to do CPR, and then out of nowhere, shock horror. It's all a joke. I was only joking. I'm not actually unconscious. I didn't hit my head that hard. Winston's obviously not happy because this is just like joke of the joke. So he's like, right, I'll stop. Later on that night. Oh, pardon me. I'm just getting over a cold, so if I sound a bit bunged up, I do apologise, but I've been wanting to start this for a while, so I just thought I'd start today while I've got the day off, while I'm free. And hopefully next time I do one, the cold will be gone. I hope. Fingers crossed. So they're setting up the computer games at the end of the night, or later on that night, and they're looking through the computer games and setting up the computer, which Winston has to set up, because he knows more about it. Seems a bit silly that his cousin and his uncle would buy a computer and then not know how to set it up and leave the cousin to do it, who's visiting. But it's a kid's book and shouldn't really be reading too much into it. So he's setting up the computer, having a few problems. He's messing around with the wires and the cables at the back and starts screaming and shaking and frothing at the mouth and collapses to the floor. So Brad's like, oh my god, he's been electrocuted, what the hell? And Winston jumps up and he's like, it's just a joke, I'm only taking the piss, I'm getting you back what you did before. So yeah, that's another fake out, and I mean, I know these books like Shivers and Goosebumps are famous for their fake outs, but I will get to that later on when I kind of start reviewing the book itself. But they both agree to end it. That's going to be the end of the jokes, because they're just going to get on each other's nerves if they carry on this way. So they leave it, and I think it's the next day, they're exploring the farm. It's either the next day or that night. It's like the longest day in history, if it is the same day. So they're exploring the farm and introducing him to the guys that work there, the farm hands, and Brad's showing him all the animals that they have. They've got horses, they've got goats, they've got roosters, and in particular there's one grey horse which is Brad's favourite, and it's a horse called Demon. So he's stroking Brad and telling him about the horse, and when he starts like screaming, like, let go of me, and he's saying, like, I need help, the horse is biting my arm, and he pulls away and walks over to Winston. Winston's just like, will you please, you tell me we're going to stop just joking, nothing's happening, why are you doing this? Brad turns around and he's got like blood pouring all down his arm, and he's all, I don't get what's happened. Demon is always really sensitive, super gentle, what's going on? But Uncle Bob, is it Uncle Bob? Is it Uncle Bill? I'm going to go with Uncle Bob, let me just scroll up. Uncle Bob, yeah. Uncle Bob puts it down to the fact that the horse was spooked. I don't know much about horses, but it's got to be one big spook to make it bite your arm. I mean, normally they kick out, don't they, when they're scared and try and run away? I don't know. So anyway, they clean up Brad's arm, have the tea, and they go to start playing these computer games. When Brad starts freaking out again about these computer games, because in the pile of games that the uncle has bought for them is a game called Animal Killers, and it's about animals that are attacking people. And on the front cover there is a red barn, exactly like the red barn that they have. There's grey horses, exactly like the grey horses they have, and there is a grey horse that's chewing on someone's arm, exactly like what Demon did to Bradley before. So they just put it down to being a coincidence because these things happen, but they're not entirely convinced that it is a coincidence. It's just a bit of a strange thing. So they're playing these games, playing computer games, and it's not too long before they start hearing a big commotion from outside. There's shouting, there's loads of loud noises, and one of the farm hands called Zeke comes running into the house, and basically he's shouting about the fact that another horse called Tornado, so there's Demon and Tornado, which are the two main horses. I think they're called Appaloosas, the type of horse. a tornado was biting his arm, and when he tried to pull away from the horse actually kicked him in the knee and almost broke his knee. I mean, I've never been kicked by a horse. I don't go around horses very often. But from what I've heard, their kick is fucking powerful. So if you get kicked in the knee by a horse, there's a good chance your leg's fucked. But anyway, so. Right, I'm trying to get it all out right now. No more so, Scott, come on. So Bradley's for fuck's sake. 2 seconds I lasted, 2 seconds. Then Bradley's in his room and he's freaking out because these 2 horses have attacked them both. It's never happened before, it's just randomly happening now. Winston wants to go home because he's scared enough being in the country as it is. This is not meant to happen. This is like horror movie stuff. I want to go home. And then they hear this massive pounding on the side of the house. Like this banging. And they're like, oh my god, the horses are trying to break down the side of the house, because that's obviously the first thing you think about. So they can... I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I keep saying so. The horses are trying to break down the side of the house. And they go around to find out what it is, and it's Zeke who's playing a joke on them. Like 1 minute ago, he's had his arm bitten, and his knee almost broken by a horse kicking him. But now he's well enough to play a prank on them, to freak them out, because he heard them saying the horses were attacking them. My first thought would be to go to hospital, not play a practical joke on the kids in the house. But anyway, so Zeke and Uncle Bob eventually leave to the hospital. And this is where things kind of kick off into a bit of a high gear, because it all really happens in one night. It's night time, and Winston is in bed sleeping, trying to sleep. He can't sleep because the horses are attacking people. Potentially. I mean, we don't know for definite what's going on, but it seems that way. And out of nowhere, pardon me, he suddenly gets either really brave or really stupid, and decides to go exploring outside. Why? They're never really explained, he just does. So in the middle of the night, he sneaks out of the house, doesn't wake up Brad, and decides, even though I'm scared and I want to go home, I'm going to do a bit of exploring in the pitch dark. So as he goes out, there's this weird fake joke thing where he thinks he sees the scary axe-murdering hairy guy that we already know isn't real, but he thinks he sees him anyway, and it just turns out to be garden tools? No idea. Winston's walking around outside, and he goes towards the barn in a really odd move. I don't know why he decides to do this, but he does. He goes into the barn, he opens up the doors, walks inside, and he can hear all the animals shuffling around. Sorry guys. He can hear all the animals shuffling around, he can see their eyes like poking out through the wood, through the darkness. It's kind of a nice, kind of scary image really, because he can't really see them properly. He can just kind of see glimpses of their eyes, but he can hear that they're there. And then out of the darkness, a rooster flies at his face, tries to attack him, so he runs outside and runs back to the bed, really scared, and just jumps back in, because another animal's attacking him. And he hears some really strange noises, looks into the corridor of the house, there's nothing there. Uncle Bob and Zeke are still at hospital, Brad's still asleep. And then he looks out the window, and when he looks out, he notices that the first thing he notices is the barn door he left open. He ran out and didn't shut it behind him. And the next thing, which is the scary thing, is all the animals that were in the barn are now outside. I would have assumed that they would have been all in pens in the barn or contained in some way, but apparently they're all just walking free, which fair enough. I don't know a lot about farms, that might be the normal thing. But all these animals are outside, and they're all kind of stood in circles, in groups, as if they're all like talking to each other. Like, do you know at the start of a football match where everyone kind of crowds around and talks tactics? It's one of those kind of situations. All the animals are in groups, and it looks like they're talking to each other. It doesn't specify whether they're actually making a lot of actual communication noises, as if there's some weird way that a pig can communicate with a sheep and blah blah blah. But he gets really scared, obviously, because all these animals look like they're plotting something, so he runs to Brad, wakes up Brad, drags Brad over to the window. Brad's half asleep, like, what the hell's going on? And he's like, Brad, look at this, looks outside the window, nothing there, all the animals have gone. So Brad's like, oh my god, just let me go back to sleep. And just before he leaves, 2 horses gallop past the window. It's Demon and Tornado, is that what their names are? They run past the window. And Brad's like, oh my god, you left the barn door open while we were exploring outside, we've got to go and get the horses now. So they run outside to try and round up the horses, but the horses have a better idea. They come charging at them, they're trying to stomp them and stand on them, and really trying to kill them, basically. Which is quite scary, because from what I can remember, it's been a long time since I've read Shivers, Goosebumps, Ghost of Fish Street, Bone Chillers, whatever, these kind of books. But normally there's not major life or death situations. There's always like a slight threat, but there's not a lot of like you're gonna die if the thing doesn't go that way. Like there's no like direct harm. There's no like people shooting at them and dodging bullets. Normally, now and again there is, but on this one, they got about halfway through and there's horses trying to stamp on them. So Winston picks up a garden chair and throws it at the horse to kind of distract it. They run back into the house and they think it's safe. So at this point, Winston is definitely convinced that it's to do with a computer game. They run into the room where the computer games are, looking through the pile, find the game, and decide. And they decide, in all their glory and wisdom, at this time when they're being attacked by animals, to install the game onto the computer. Now, people watching, I don't know how old you are, if there's anybody listening to this, but computer games did not take a short time to install back in the day. Well, it's like floppy disks. Computer games took quite a long time to get where they needed to go. So they install all the disks onto the computer. The instructions pop up about an animal rebellion. The animals themselves are fed up of being used for food, so they arrange themselves into an army to rebel against the owners or you. The problem is, if you injure or kill any of the animals, they will be replaced by 10 more animals from a surrounding farm. So there's no end to the animals that can come. You kill them, you hurt them, 10 more will take their place. And in the description of the game, it describes 2 horses called Devil and Twisted, like Demon and Tornado. And it describes the attacks that they do on the farmhands, and that they're exactly the same as what's happened to them. And it describes the animals all meeting in groups outside, exactly like what's just happened. So now it's definitely to do with a computer. And at that point, the horse, or both the horses, start attacking the house. This time they really are horses trying to barge through one of the walls of the house. I can't imagine that will take them very long, because it's a barn, it's like a farm barn. They're usually made with wood, I think, but I can't remember. Brad and Winston need to come up with a plan, and they need to come up with a plan quickly, because the wood starts to crack on the wall, plaster's falling in, and they run to the living room trying to think, this must be like the only way to get out of the house. Living room, go out the front door, get out of here, we'll see what we can do. Arrive at the living room, and are met by probably one of the scariest sights in this book. At every single window in the living room, standing in the living room, staring at them, is goats. Every window, 1, 2, 3, I don't know how many goats, just stood staring at them. I mean, if that's not the stuff of nightmares, I don't know what is. And as well as the goats staring at them, they're actually trying to eat through the metal screens as well. Like, sometimes in these areas they have like mesh wire to stuff that's over the windows to protect them from being smashed. So the goats are actually trying to eat through those. Winston and Brad don't really have a choice. The living room's out of order. The bedrooms where the horse is trying to get through, run back into the corridor. And at that point they can hear the goats and some roosters flying in through the living room. They must have broken in, and the roosters are flying in through the hole as well. And the only choice they've got is to lock themselves in the bathroom, which is described as the strongest room in the house because Brad's dad, the Uncle Bob, yeah, he said to hide in there if there's ever a tornado. There's no windows and no way to get out, but it's apparently the most sturdiest built room in the house. They get in there, and the roosters start pecking at the door, trying to peck through the wood. They can hear goats barging into it, trying to break through. And while they're in the bathroom as well, they hear the bedroom wall collapse. The horses have broke through. They're basically up shit creek without a paddle. They're trapped in this small bathroom with a farmyard full of animals trying to kill them. And then in in one of the strangest parts of the book, it's only a couple of lines long, but it's really stuck out as a really strange, weird part. Winston comes up with a plan, and he's like, we have no other choice, this is what we need to do. And his plan to stop the horde of oncoming animals from killing them is to get into the bathtub, lie down in the bathtub, and cover themselves up with bath towels. Because, not to hide them from sight, because I don't think that would work, but because the horses might not be able to eat through the cotton. Again, I'm not an animal expert. I don't know what horses can and can't eat. However, I'm going to guess that covering yourself up with a towel, a horse can at least pull it off, even if he's not going to eat it. It just seemed like a really ridiculous plan to get into a bath and cover yourself with towels and hope that the horses and the goats and the chickens can't eat through it. Because it's just I don't know what his logic was. I really don't know, but I laughed out loud at the time because I was like, what? It reminds me of, but I don't know if you've ever heard of these things, but like years ago, I saw them in school. Like they showed us these vintage videos that they used to show kids, and I think it was the public actually, about what to do if a nuclear bomb ever goes off. They used to hide in the bathtub and put, I think it's a mattress over the top of it, which is bollocks. That would never stop you from getting killed by a nuclear bomb. But it kind of reminded me of that, like a really stupid hide in the bathtub plan. But I give credit to the writer for making me laugh. I wasn't expecting it, so I laughed quite a lot. So the only other choice they've got, other than this crazy cotton towel plan, is to go into the attic. So they must have like not a trap door, but you know, those things that you pull down, or a little hatch in the ceiling to get up through to the attic. And so Winston goes up into the attic, and Brad goes up, and just as they pull themselves up, the bathroom door breaks in. So now they really have nowhere else to go. I do kind of wish they would have tried the cotton plan, because I would have loved to see how long it lasted. But anyway, they're in the attic, they're trying to crawl through, and again another really weird thing happens. They meet like a bunch of rats, like a pile of rats. Well, they don't meet them, not like, how do you do, Mr. Rat? How are you today? No, they just meet like a shit ton of rats. It never really goes anywhere. The rats don't really do a lot. They're just there. I think maybe the author was trying to think of a scary animal to put into the attic so they actually can't stay there, they have to leave as a plot device. But I myself would have probably gone with bats. That would have made a little bit more sense, I think. Or spiders, maybe. Bats in the barn might have made more sense. Well, I don't know. Anyway, rats, pile of rats, so they have to break out through the attic window. They notice that the actual farm is empty, empty, because all the animals are actually inside the house, piling through towards the bathroom, trying to get up to them. So they drop out the window into the farm, and Brad comes up with a plan, is it Brad that comes up with a plan, or is it Winston? No, Winston comes up with a plan. He believes that the game holds the key to everything that's going on. He's convinced 100% now that the game is the problem. So the plan that they come up with involves Brad running to the barn. He picks up a ladder, puts a ladder against the side of the barn, and climbs up. So he stood on top of the barn, and he pulls the ladder up on top of the barn. And yes, that detail is important. I'm not just being meticulous. The detail of Brad pulling up the ladder is very important to the story. Well, kind of important to the story. Winston runs back to the house and shouts something about hey, I'm outside. I can't remember exactly what he shouts, but he shouts something to the animals to get their attention. And he hides around the corner of their house. So the animals come running out, and all they see is Brad stood on top of the barn. And he's like waving, trying to get their attention as well. So all the animals come charging out of the house and charging over to where the barn is, giving Winston the opportunity to get inside the house. And he runs into the house, gets into the bedroom, and he describes the whole thing's like eerily silent because all the animals have left. There's just no noise in the house. And he finds the computer games, and he finds the one that they're talking about, the animal attack. Is that what it was called? Just before he picks it up, he hears a scratching sound from behind him, and he looks around, and on the hole that the horses punched through the wall is a rooster that's still sat there. It's not left. And the rooster goes to attack him, and he throws a book at it. The book misses. Winston grabs the next thing that's available, which is the animal attack game box. And as he lifts it up into the air, the rooster returns back to normal. It just acts like a normal rooster. Okay, so that happened. It was random, but it doesn't make sense in terms of what happens next or at the end of it. But he raises the game box in the air. The rooster goes back to normal. And what happens next? Oh yeah, Brad's on top of the barn screaming for help because obviously the animals are trying to break down the barn. So Winston runs out, sees again another scary sight. Brad on top of the barn. The bottom of the barn was surrounded by the farmyard of animals, all trying to break down the walls. So he runs up to the animals and places the game box on every animal's forehead to turn it back to normal. No, that does not happen. That's just me taking the piss, because the whole picking up the box and the rooster goes back to normal is ridiculous. It just doesn't make sense, especially with how they eventually get out of it. Anyway, so when Brad's outside about to get killed by all these animals, and he's screaming, "Go and get a gun, start shooting the animals." Winston's like, "I can't do that, you fucking moron. If I kill an animal, 10 more will come. What are you talking about?" And Brad just kind of points into the distance. And Winston turns around. I keep getting the names mixed up. Winston turns around and sees out in the field, coming out of the darkness, like more animals charging at them. And he's like, "What the fuck is happening?" Brad basically tells him that he got so scared up there on top of the barn that he was going to die that he picked up the ladder that he used to climb up, and he threw it at some of the animals to hurt them. So now that he's hurt the animals, more animals from the surrounding farms are coming to attack. So, I mean, I'm going to talk about this again at the end, but this is a really scary part. It's not actually scary to read, but to visualise. Because you've got your best friend on top of a barn which has been attacked by horses, goats, roosters. They're the only 3 animals that are mentioned, even though on the cover there's like a bull and some pigs and stuff. So there's all these animals trying to break down the barn to kill your best friend. And you can see in the distance, out of the darkness, like coming across like a scene from Braveheart. More animals coming, just flooding in. I was like, what the hell do you do? Like, I would shit myself, I'm not going to lie. I would absolutely shit myself. So Winston comes up with this brilliant idea that because it's something to do with the game box, maybe destroy the game box. So, oh my god. Seriously, I had to donate money every time I say so. Winston realises that because he picked up the game box and it did something before, that's probably the key. He runs back into the house, gets the game box, finds some matches and sets fire to the box, thinking, right, if I destroy the game box, everything will go back to normal. The discs are inside the box, everything like that. Everything from the game is all together. Sets a fire, burns it, gets rid of it, goes outside, and sees that all the animals are returning back to normal. And he's like, yes, it's over. I've destroyed this game that was causing whatever caused... That's not English. This game that was causing all this chaos and destruction is destroyed. Everything's going back to normal. Brad comes down from the barn and comes running over. He's like, you did it, what did you do? And just before they reach each other, Demon, the horse, comes charging out of nowhere, trying to attack them again. And they're like, oh my god, I thought this was over. They run into the house to try and hide, which is a silly kind of move now, so especially because the horses have already broke down a wall in the house. But they run into the house and try and get some safety. And Winston has a bright idea. He's like, I know what's going on. I know why we're not safe. Runs to the computer, loads up the computer, and says basically that we destroyed the game, but the information from the game is still on the computer, so the game's still active. So he deletes all the files from the computer, everything that's related to the game, and gets rid of it all. Horses go back to normal, the horror is over, and then they just have this really cheesy little ending where they're like, oh no, how are we going to explain this to my uncle? Ha 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 ha. Like, yeah, the barn's pretty much going to be in tatters soon, because there's no way the horses and that didn't do a lot of damage. Barn will be falling apart. Your living room windows are going to be smashed. The bathroom door's knocked in. The bedroom door's got a fucking wall missing. Yeah, how are you going to mention it to your uncle? He won't believe that you're all been attacked by ant. Well, he might do. But still, he's still going to be pissed off. So they make a joke about telling her uncle, ha 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 ha. And then, in a really kind of creepy ending, I don't know if it's creepy just because I have a really dirty mind, but they're like, ooh, if your uncle's going to buy us any more games that are going to do this, then at least get them to buy some games that are about beautiful teenage girls we can kiss. Oh, there's nothing wrong with kissing teenage girls when you're that age. Fair enough. But it's just it's just like you've just been attacked by all these animals. They've been trying to kill you. And 2 seconds later, you're like, oh, yeah, let's go kiss some teenage girls. But yeah, that's the ending. It surprised me because series like Goosebumps, and I mention Goosebumps a lot because it's such a big part of my life, or it was, and a lot of other ones that I've read, those kind of series, tend to all end on cliffhangers, so I was expecting the same from this one, but it didn't. It just ends with that kissing girls joke. I mean, not ending on a cliffhanger is not a bad thing, because sometimes your twist at the end of a book can be kind of shoved in there. It doesn't really make any sense. It's not well set up. It doesn't have any kind of relation to the story. So sometimes end twists can be crap, but there wasn't one in here. I would have normally talked about whether I liked the end twist or not, but I'm not going to because there wasn't one. Before I get to the review of the book, there's a few different things I want to talk about. The first one is always going to be any open plot points that aren't resolved or any things that aren't explained that are just really random that spring to my mind. And the main thing in particular for me is why this is happening. Like, I didn't really say at the start that I identified with Winston a little bit. I am a city kid myself. I very rarely go out to the country or go to farms or anything like that. I normally go to farms as like a day out in the zoo or whatever now and again. But I live in the city centre of places where it's busy and there's people and vibrant. So I get it that Winston was scared. I was well on board with him. I am a wuss when it comes to going to farms. When they give you like a handful of seed and you have to give them to like goats to eat or sheep, I am a wuss, not going to lie. I get really freaked out because I think they're going to eat my hands. So I'm all with him. And the concept of animals attacking people, I can get on board with that because it happens. It's real life. Not to this extent, obviously. But animals do attack people. It's scary and it's true. Sometimes they just get set off. Sometimes they do want to attack people. Farm animals, not so much. But on the whole, animals do sometimes attack. So again, I'm on board, I'm with you, animals are attacking people. And in this series, it's always to do with supernatural stuff most of the time. Again, I'm on board. There's a computer game that's causing these animals to go haywire. Great, awesome, I can do that, I can believe that. But, why? Why? Where did it come from? And I don't expect a full, detailed biography about this computer game, because that's not what you get with these books, but I was expecting some sort of explanation, like maybe they bought the game from this shop, which is like one of those little magic shops that you see in like a You're Afraid of the Dark, where every item's got like a bad reaction, so you buy a love potion, and it makes people obsessed with you, or you buy a popularity pill and the same thing happens, or where you buy stuff and basically has a bad outcome. I expected it to be maybe one of them. Maybe they bought the game from one of these weird shops. No, nothing like that. Or maybe the best explanation that I came up with myself, that I would have said, was maybe it was created by an animal activist, like people who fight for animal rights, who was also like a witch or had some sort of magical powers. And so they weren't happy that these farms were using the animals for meat and for produce. So they created this game for the animals to get a revenge and for the animals to get the freedom. It's a loose theory. It's not solid. It's not like skin tight, but it works. It would make sense. It only needs to be a couple of lines long for that explanation to be in there and for it to make sense. But there was no explanation at all why the uncle bought a pile of games, and yet this one in particular, which ties in exactly to their life, is there, or why it makes things happen when the other games don't. I don't know, right? That just kind of bugged me a little bit, because even though in these books, like I say, the explanations can sometimes be quite crap, but at least there's an explanation as to why it's happening. The fact that this computer game caused it to happen for no sort of reason is odd. I would have been okay with it if maybe it only happened after the game was installed. That would have made more sense in relation to what happened later on. But the first attack happened before the game was installed, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think it was. So I don't know. It felt a little bit like a really good concept with just a little bit missing from it. A little bit missing. Okay. I was always going to comment on a good and a bad cliffhanger in these books. It's sad. I know it's sad, but I'm a sad person. I'm not going to lie. These books are known for it, especially Goosebumps. It's what they're famous for. Is that pretty much every chapter has a cliffhanger at the end of it. Sometimes they work really well. Sometimes they don't work really well. So in each review, I'm probably going to talk about a good and a bad cliffhanger, and I hope you agree or disagree. Please comment and tell me what you think worked well and what didn't, and if you think I'm a total idiot or not. So the bad one in this book, it's kind of a bad 5, but I'm grouping them together as 1. Because it was all the jokes at the beginning of the fake outs. I mentioned it earlier on and I'll talk about it now, but again, these books, one of the kind of the tropes that happens quite regularly is that there's someone that jumps out of the darkness, end of chapter. But oh no, it's my best friend. Something that grabs my ankle, end of chapter. Next chapter it's, oh, I just walked into a root of a tree. They do it quite regularly where they have this scary event and they're like, no, not really, it's a joke. And fair enough, 1 or 2 can work quite well. But this book did 5 in quite quick succession. Oh, that's a tongue twister, especially when you can't breathe through your nose. Quite quick succession. They did. The truck was haunted. No, we were only joking. Your room's a murder room. No, we were only joking. I've hit my head and I'm unconscious. No, I'm only joking. I've electrocuted myself with the computer. No, I'm only joking. The horses are trying to break in. No, it was just me joking. It just felt a bit much. It felt a bit like padding. They were just trying to put stuff in there for the sake of making the book have more chapters with the cliffhanger endings. I mean, I'm not going to criticise the writing because I can't write great. I can read. I can see good and bad writing when I read it, but I'm not going to comment on it because that's not what I'm here to do. There are other people out there who are much better at it than I am. But having all these fake out cliffhangers, it didn't feel right. It just seemed a bit odd and a bit annoying and a bit repetitive. But onto the good one, what I thought for me was my favourite one, was when they were trapped in the bathroom and the animals were trying to break through. And the reason I chose this one is for a few reasons. Again, I mentioned the animals in real life scare me a bit. So I get it. I'm all on board with the fact that animals attacking can be quite scary. I can see it. I can picture it. I would be shitting myself as well. But I also like in films and TV shows and books and games, anything, where the characters are in a seemingly like impossible situation, they're trapped in a single room, there's no way to get out, and it's trying to find their way out. I like that, because it's about survival, and it's about how they learn to survive very quickly in a very unfair situation. And in particular, it reminded me of the scene from Halloween. Have you ever seen the 1970s horror film Halloween? There's a scene in it where the serial killer called Michael Myers has trapped the main character in a closet, or a wardrobe as we call it in the UK. He's trapped them in a closet, and he knows she's in there. He's trying to break through the doors, and she's just cowering in the corner because she's put herself in there. And it's a scary scene, especially when I watched it when I was young. It's a really scary scene because you're just like, how is she going to get out of that situation? There's nothing she can do because she's in the closet. There's virtually nothing in that closet except a couple of clothes. The killer with a knife is stood outside. He knows you're there. It seems like an impossible situation. Now, I'm not going to say how she gets out of the closet. You need to go and watch the film. If you haven't, where have you been living? Have you been living under a rock? It's the best horror film of all time, or one of them. But yeah, it reminded me of that. That's why I thought that cliffhanger, which I can't remember which chapter it was from. I'll try and note it in future for any of you nerds who want to nerd along with me and read it with me, or look through and read it for yourself. But yeah, being trapped in the bathroom with no seeming way of escaping, I just thought it was good. I thought it was a really good cliffhanger. It was a good way to leave it. In terms of the cover, yes, I'm going to review the cover and the story, and then I'll give the book a rating. The cover, I love. I love this cover. I do. There's some covers in the series I don't love. Same with any series. I love some images. Sometimes I like really good images on the cover, but they don't relate to what's gone on in the book, which I find really odd. And sometimes I like the cover because it's not the best image, but it is a really relatable image to the story. Now with this cover, as you can see, it does relate to the story. It's a really nice orangey red sunset glow. It does help that orange is my favourite colour, orange and yellow. And you can see all these animals with like glowing eyes. Well, they don't have glowing eyes in the book, I don't think. I don't remember that. But it's a nice image on the picture. All these creepy animals, like a twisted version of Animal Farm, which I had to read in school. Just shoot me now. I love the image of the animal stood there in front of the body. However, in the book, while they bit 2 arms and scratched a few faces, that's about all they did. There was no like dead bodies lying around. But for the sake of the story, I actually appreciate the cover. I see what it tried to do and I love it. And as a kid, because I'm a fucking moron, I never realised that in the blood you can see that there's a skull shape. I actually only realised this not recently, but semi-recently, because I'm a fucking idiot. So I love the cover. I love it. The only problem I have with it, other than the fact that there's no body in the book, is that you don't see some of these animals in the story. I'm not bothered about the chicklets or the little chicklets that would be, or the little ducklings, the little furry things. I'm gonna go with chicks, ducks, chicks. I'm gonna go with chicks. They would have been really cute to see them evil and flying around. That would have been a really cute part to the story. But mainly the bull at the top. That would have been scary as hell if that was in the story. Having a bull attack people. 12-year-old people. Because the bull can do serious damage. Now, I'm not saying we should get the bull to, run into the boys because they would crush them to death. But the bull, say, charged into the house or charged into the barn, would have torn a hole through it, surely. Surely it would have torn a hole through it. I don't know. I feel like, because I've taken so many pills to get over this cold, I'm going into like a pill haze. But yeah, the bull itself, that would have been a really great part to put in there. I'm really kind of annoyed that they didn't. They chose to stick with the horses, not pigs, horses. Yeah, the pig wasn't in there either. Horses, goats, and roosters. Pardon me. But yeah, again, cover, love it. Probably give the cover an A. The reason I give the cover an A is because it's just something it's stuck with me since I was a kid. The image stuck with me. These have always been in my wardrobe in some home or another. So yeah, I give the cover an A. And the reason I give it I give the cover an A. And the reason that I give this cover an A is because this image has always stuck with me since I was a kid. I always had the books in like a cupboard or a shelf in all my different homes. They were always just there, and every now and again I'd nerd out with some of my friends from when I was younger and would look at them and read some of the blurbs and stuff. I'd look at the covers, and this image would always just be one that would kind of stick in my mind. And I do think it's because I relate to the fear of animals attacking me. I don't have a fear of dogs. I don't have a fear of most animals, to be fair. I just think that animals do attack people, and it's scary. So I'll cover A. My review of the story. Loved it. I love the concept of it. I've said it 100 times, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. But I love the concept of the animals attacking. There was some really good imageries in the book. The few images in particular that I can think of, there was the one where Winston went into the farm and he could hear all the animals kind of shuffling around him, but he couldn't really see them. That was a scary image because he's kind of in the dark with danger. The image of all the animals stood in groups outside, talking, is quite spooky. And then Brad being on top of the barn while the animals are trying to attack it. And all the goats in the living room window staring at the kids. Yeah, there's some really nice imagery that the author put into this. I would have liked a little bit more description of them, kind of a bit more detail about them. But it's a kid's book, it's not about that. So the actual imagery that he came up with was really good. I was really impressed. And again, I've got to give him points for the fact that he put in the line about the hiding in the bath because the horse won't be able to get to us or eat through the cotton. I've got to give him points for that. But yeah, the story was great. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I picked this one to start with because it's a concept that I felt like I could associate with and get involved in and really just get lost for an hour or 2 hours or however long it took to read. I cannot talk today. So the story, great. Loved it. There's a few bits that I wish they would have cleaned up a bit or put a bit more thought into, which is primarily just the origin or the reason for this happening. Because, yes, it was a computer game, but there's no reasons to why. Why did the rooster go back to normal just from touching the box or from looking at the box in the air, whereas the rest of the animals will wait until the data is destroyed? I don't know. So if that would have been wrapped up and tightened and secured, I would have loved this a whole lot more. But I did really enjoy it. It was a great book to start off on. I will give this book I could probably give it an A- because I did enjoy it a lot more than I expected. Great images, great story, but there were some things that it needed to improve on. It did need to improve on some of the actual little details. So, if you've never heard of Shivers and you were interested in starting to read Shivers, I'd say number 4, The Animal Rebellion, is a good one to start with. If you have read Shivers and you do know which book I'm talking about, I did look on YouTube. I think I mentioned this in my last video, the introduction. I haven't seen anybody else really on YouTube that talks about this series much, so please get in touch if you've read it. What did you think about this book? Did you like this book? Did you not like this book? Did you think there was any good cliffhangers, any good imagery in the book that scared you? And I'm really interested as well, is there any kids nowadays that read this? Have you read this when you were young? What did you think of it then? Anyone who's read this as a kid and now as an adult, have you ever read it again now? What did you think? I'm intrigued. This, like I said before, this is part of the reason why I'm doing this, is to get back to my roots as a kid. For personal reasons, I've lost a lot of myself recently. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it. So having these shivers and the goosebumps were always a big memento of my childhood, like the happiest time of my life. So this is what these books are bringing back to me. So I really enjoyed it. It was really good to get back to this. So please, guys, give me a comment or a subscribe if you liked this review. I'll try next time to be not as bunged up, not as so heavy, and to try not to mumble my words as much. I am a mumbler. I do apologise. It's something I'm learning to get rid of. So you do notice that when I mumble, I will stop and then I'll say it again slower. It's kind of part of the process. I'm learning about talking slowly, because talking so fast has got me not in trouble, but it's got in the way of things in life with work and stuff. So yeah, I love this book. Please comment, let's get in touch. We'll discuss the book, see if you like it. If you've not, Shivers number 4, Animal Rebellion, great one to start off on. I don't know what I'm going to read next. I will probably read another Shivers. I am going to alternate this series of reviews. At the moment I've got Goosebumps 2000 and the new Goosebumps Horrorland. I've got Ghosts of Fear Street, Animorphs, and I think I've got another one at home, but I can't remember. So I'm going to alternate between all those different ones and maybe pick up some more off eBay or in charity shops of series that I used to read as a kid, and try and get back into them and see what they're like nowadays. But until I get hold of more books, I am going to do another Shivers review next. I don't know which one it's going to be, so you'll have to tune in next time to see which one it is. I will create a Facebook or a Twitter for this channel so that you can find out what I'm reading in advance. If you want to read along and then listen to the reviews with me, we can do that. Yeah, so I guess that's it for now. Like, I hope you enjoyed it. I will try and do much better next time. And that was my first review. So, guys, tune in next time. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, when the horses attack, make sure you got plenty of cotton towels to hand, okay? Because they can't eat through. Good night, guys.